After over 70 sessions with companies last year, hundreds of calls with ERG leaders and program managers, not to mention dozens of consulting clients, I have some learnings from 2025 that hopefully you can bring into 2026. My name is Maceo Owens, and I go by the ERG Homegirl. I'm the CEO and founder of the ERG Movement. We're an ERG enablement company dedicated to making you all's lives easier in the ERG space. We're big on making it so that there's less burnout and more engagement. That said, 13 predictions for this year, and hopefully you will be able to take these predictions to help set up your program for success. First, let's address the elephant in the room. 2025 was tumultuous, to say the least, when it comes to the ERG space. Obviously, with changes within the political climate and whatnot, a lot of ERG programs have been on edge recently. Reflecting on last year, I would say I was considerably less worried about ERGs than other people in the space because I have full faith that ERGs are going to survive what's happening right now. I've said for a while now that even though the EI had some changes coming, ERGs felt safer. And go figure, last year a lot of companies had a lot of changes in their DEI space. However, their ERG programs, not untouched, but very little touched. Maybe there's some hesitations over certain pieces of programming that they would have done before. Maybe they were kind of forced to open up their ERG spaces and make them open to all. Small, minor tweaks, but in general, the program still exists at large. Here comes my prediction for this year, 2026. If I had to group the major themes that I predict, I would say health, safety, and stability of the ERG programs. Yes, they exist. When we talk about healthy, that goes back to what I said earlier. High engagement or impact, low burnout. That's a big theme continuing throughout the year. Safety meaning the existence of the program, but also coupled with what things the program is doing. Are they safe? Making sure that ERG programs are safe with their programming. Is it something that might set off some red flags in this political climate? And lastly, making sure that they're stable. For me, when I think about stability, I think about the long term of the program. Is that in jeopardy? Well, that's really what I imagine people are going to be trying to crack within 2026, those three areas when it comes to ERGs. At least the companies who really take their ERG programs seriously. Not all of them do, which we'll discuss in a second. There's also some companies who really went through it last year. Even with the reduction maybe of their DEI department and whatnot, this has left a lot of their employees right now feeling a lack of trust, likely with their organization. Another prediction that I have coming your way, this lack of trust that stems from any DEI shifts that your company might have had. For those companies that aren't direct and aren't upfront, employee trust will continue to decrease in 2026. Prediction number 3. We talked a little bit about how ERGs may have been repositioned in 2025. Maybe we would associate them with DEI and say the ERGs are a DEI initiative. Maybe that was the purpose we landed on before. I am predicting more so that in 2026, we are going to have to get more specific on ERG's purpose and how they are aligned internally. There needs to be more clarity on this. It can't just be this abstract concept. See, here's the thing. ERGs, they really blew up around 2020. They got really popular. And because they were popular, we didn't have to have them rooted in something. Now we do. And I don't think that rooting them in DEI is going to be the smartest move long term. Again, the political climate is one, which just means that if you have a single executive, honestly, could say, I'm not aligned with DEI, therefore I'm not aligned with these ERGs. And again, ERGs are more than just the concept of DEI. I say this all the time. Because ERGs are communities, I mean, there's this people element to them. Naturally, they should sit under the people aspect of the organization. And more specifically, I would put them under employee engagement. You see, I talked about this a lot last year. ERGs being a form of internal marketing, helping people to see themselves more in the company's employee engagement efforts, but we're just doing segmented internal marketing, helping niche groups kind of see themselves within the programming. Niche interests see themselves in programming, not just this generic employee engagement programming that we see. Well, with that, I think that a lot more organizations are going to choose a lane for their ERGs. Surprisingly, I'm seeing some organizations nest ERGs under learning and development, which is interesting because I talk about the CGG framework a lot, connection, growth, give back. 3 reasons why people is because it's one or more of those 3 there. So it's interesting that we're nesting it under growth, although connection is continuously the most popular reason why people join ERGs. So when you nest ERGs under learning and development, you basically say that this is a professional development initiative. You put connection in the backseat, in my opinion. I'm not a big fan of nesting ERGs under learning and development. However, I'm seeing it. That said, I do think that more ERGs are going to be nested under a specific function that might not be DEI. Again, connection, that I would say would be employee engagement. That's the umbrella I would nest it under. It's the number one reason why people join ERGs. Not to mention, employee engagement is internal marketing. ERGs is just segmented internal marketing. It makes more sense there. Learning and development, like I said, then you put the most popular reason why people join ERGs into the back seat. I'm not a big fan of that. Plus, if you're gonna go the learning and development route, there's just so much more that needs to be built out, because now you're saying this is a professional development program. Well, do you actually have the professional development aspect like ironed out within your programming? It's a lot harder to do than just the connection piece. That means that you should have a robust onboarding for your ERG leaders, for your members. You should have clarity on how everything ties back to professional development. All these things, I'm not a fan. Give back, that's like the CSR aspect of ERGs, the donations, the volunteerism. It's an aspect of ERGs. I will say continuously, I see that as the least popular reason why people join ERGs of the 3, CGG. So I also don't love it in that area either. Me personally, I'm a fan of employee engagement. Just in general, I know some people are probably thinking, well, why not just keep them under DEI? So if you're new, if you don't know who I am, being the ERG homegirl, again, I just feel like if there is a space that is in danger, just in general, why would we nest the ERGs under that dangerous space? Not to mention, a lot of the initiatives that DEI drives, ERGs actually should not touch. Things like inclusive benefits or even marketing campaigns, things like that there have been some legal ramifications for ERGs touching. I did videos on this throughout last year. So I say that to say that's the lane I would choose. I do see that now we are not going to have a choice. We're going to have to nest ERGs under some bigger, broader initiative. And that's kind of the space that we're in right now. Next up, because of the shifts that have happened in the space, that have happened with DEI, the reality is a lot of programs have been left without a program manager, or the person who was the program manager before is likely no longer at the company, or they're just taking on more responsibility. That's a separate one I'll talk about later. But I saw a lot of ERG program managers unfortunately get laid off last year. Now with that, that means that this program is now floating. It's like they need to be adopted by somebody. And what I typically see is that means that there's some random person within the organization that's assigned ERGs, probably nesting under one of those categories that I said earlier: connection, which will be employee engagement; growth, which will be learning and develop; give back, which is that CSR aspect. And one of those 3 teams probably is going to end up owning the ERG program. If your program, like if your DEI department or whomever's over your ERGs is in danger, that's the next thing. Well, for those programs, that now means that somebody who is not an ERG expert is over the ERG program, which is so interesting because in a weird way, this is the same exact space that we were in a couple of years ago when ERGs got popular, and then all of a sudden, like, somebody had to own it. We're doing it again, just with new people. And this is why the ERG space is kind of like something that I'm so passionate about helping, because we're going to keep getting new people over these programs and confused on best practices over and over again. I'm not set. Yeah. So there needs to be a one place full of the best practices and the real resources just in general. That said, unfortunately, the reality is there will be more amateurs leading ERGs. And amateurs, that's not an offensive thing, but more people who are not ERG experts, who don't get the ins and outs of ERGs, will be leading ERG programs. That's a scary space to be, but that is the space that we're at next. Not to mention a lot of these people who will be leading ERGs now, that's not their sole role. For a lot of them, that's going to be something that they do on top of whatever other aspect of the organization that they own. So even less attention is going to be put to the protection, to the longevity, to the, what did we say earlier, health, safety, sustainability of the ERG program. So that is not a great thing that I see coming, but it is the reality of the space right now. Not just the program managers, but the reality is a lot of those ERG leaders who might have joined during like the 2020 boom of ERGs, if they haven't already rolled off now, I mean, even for the ERG leaders who might have joined within the past couple of years where there was still kind of like that fire, there's a lot of them are also rolling off, even if it's just because it's time. Now, the thing that comes with that is that means that this new ERG program manager is likely also managing new ERG leaders who don't know best practices. Again, not a great situation happening right now. If anything scares me about the longevity of ERG, it is that. It is how can we make sure that everyone, again, is on the same page with what good best practices actually are. Next up, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but unfortunately, a lot of ERG programs I anticipate will be approached in a kind of lazy way or performative way in 2026, and that's also unfortunate. There's two reasons why that might be happening. Reason number one, you have new amateur person who doesn't know best practices, who also has another role that they are doing, so they say, what is the easiest possible win that we can take with this ERG program? Typically what that means is, what is the least amount of work that I can do as an individual and have ERG leaders do something? That approach is going to hurt your program long term. Sometimes the shortcuts that we try to take and like cutting out work is actually going to cost us way more in the end. That is an approach that will cost you way more in the end. That will cost your program way more in the end. Outside of that, the other angle that I'm seeing would be people who've been the program manager for some time, because they might realize, one, that the company that they're working at doesn't really take ERG seriously, which could be because the ERG program was never kind of like actually put together and invested in terms of time and resources to create processes and whatnot. Because you realize that your company doesn't care, you just stick to the performative things. I get it. But unfortunately, that also does not lead to better programming, to better processes, all the things. And even then, a lot of those program managers still do not have a full-time job dedicated to ERGs. They have other things also that they need to support. So again, they take the easy route. It's just like a lot right now in the ERG space is, how can we take the easy route when it comes to program foundations? That's the thing that needs to be done seriously. Like, that's not something that we should be taking the easy route on. Unfortunately, I predict that in 2026, it's actually going to get worse with people wanting to take the easy route. Which for me, side note, it just feels like a pressure to be like, how can I make it so that people who want to take the easy route say, hey, what Maceo's saying, it might not be easy, but it seems doable and it's worth just investing a little bit of time in. Because to be honest with you, if anyone were to take one dedicated quarter to turn around their ERG program, you could do it. I do it at companies all over, multiple companies at a time. So I know that if it was your sole focus for one quarter, if you could advocate for that internally, that your program could be night and day by the end of that quarter. That's what I wish for you. But my fear is that, again, because we have newbies and because we have OGs who also realize, it's actually just easier just to do it the easy way, which we know is not going to result in a lot long term. Well, that's where we're at. Now, this next prediction is kind of interesting. Based on what I just said, you would not imagine that part of the easy way when it comes to ERG programs is expansion. However, again, we said that a lot of people will be performative during 2026. Well, part of that means that we're doing things that make the program look like we're doing well, even if we're not. And expansion seems to be one of those topics. Something that I heard a lot throughout 2025, but I imagine it's only going to get worse again in 2026, where we say our program is struggling. It's because we haven't expanded. It's because we haven't expanded globally. It's because we don't do chapters. It's because we don't loop in our frontline folks, and that's why our program's struggling. That's not why your program is struggling. I'm just here to say that directly. Actually, I believe, and I say this all the time, you don't scale mess. So you don't expand until what you currently have is put together. Like, that's the way to scale in a healthy way, is to fix something, make sure it's running, and then you get bigger. Right now, we know that right now our ERG program is a mess and we're just trying to get bigger because it looks good. But we know that internally it's still a mess. It's just a bigger mess. That's going to continue to happen. And while when I say that out loud, this sounds obvious, this is a conversation I have to have, and oftentimes a conversation that I end up losing with a lot of people because, again, it's tempting to do the performative thing, even if we know that it's shallow on the inside, and we say, well, if we get bigger, we can eventually fix the middle. We need to fix the middle first and then get bigger. So unfortunately, I see more companies will expand their ERG programs. When, if anything, I would actually recommend the opposite of expanding. If anything, I recommend condensing your ERG program. Instead of having these scattered chapters all over the place and everyone's doing their own thing and we need more processes for each of the different chapters and you need to condense your program to as little groups as possible. Get that together, and I don't say that to say get rid of your Black and your API ERG and your Hispanic and Latin American ERG and make them a people of color ERG. Those are still, there's some core ERG groups that you should have, but if you have women and women in tech and women in engineering and women in finance, maybe it should just be a women's ERG. Removal of the chapters, centralization, getting it together, and then expanding. That is something I wish more people would do. However, do I predict that that will be the big trend of 2026? No, unfortunately. The bad outweighs the good right now. Not great, not great. Negative trend that I see, AI bloat in the space. As more tools become available in the AI space, I think there will be a lot of hacks that are kind of presented for ERGs. I say AI, but maybe I should say like tech bloat for ERGs, which is only gonna expand on the everything is everyness of our ERG program, whether that's from ERG softwares, what have you. And those hacks may not be the best long term. Like, I even know of some ERG softwares right now who offer like a free trial just to get you in the door and then like get you stuck, which now becomes another thing that your ERG program has to manage. Like, I see more and more tech opportunities that may not be good opportunities within the ERG space. And again, I'll say this because I've always said it, I feel like if a company has never, like if you've never program managed an ERG successfully, then it's going to be very difficult for you to offer tech and to say what tech is best for a successful ERG program. And that trend continues today. And side note, not a plug, but a plug, I will say that's why the only ERG software that I recommend if you were to purchase would be Epoch, because they're working with me directly. I mean, I'm trying to be humble about it, but at the same time, because I can actually say success, because I have actual metrics to talk about the success of ERG programs that I've worked with, then I feel like I can weigh in on the product and how we can actually have the right things to help your program be successful. So things like their agent Epoch, which actually allows to like real simplification of ERG work, not just like, hey, yeah, we have software and that means your ERG saves time, but no, like it's an AI bot that actually does things for ERGs. It can actually put things on the calendar, automatically create a post-event survey, automatically create a description just based off of a couple of prompts. Like, because it's so easy, that makes sense to me. Anyway, I digress. My point is, there are so few softwares that I recommend, even though there's a lot out there, for a reason. And that is just purely if we're talking about ERG softwares. Outside of that, there's other different things that I imagine will be introduced for ERGs. Asana boards, Notion, Slack, which is actually ironically the least used, which it should be like the most. Anyway, more SharePoint sites, whatever it might be. Like, I think more tech is not nearly as good as having like 3 core platforms that we use for our ERGs internally. Condensing should be the trend, but I'm concerned about the opportunity for people to expand in a tech stack way for their ERGs. So using too many softwares when you could actually get more out of a couple. So anyway, let's talk about another kind of, I'm not going to say fully negative trend, but this is a new concept that I unlocked recently. Member-led programming versus vendor-led programming. Things that ERG leaders and members cure, which means that you don't have to pay someone to come in and do, versus vendor-led programming. You have to pay for someone to come in and do this thing, and it's going to decrease the lift from your ERG leaders because someone is doing the bulk of the thing. Like if you have a speaker, that's a vendor-led programming, I would say, because that's like the event is the speaker. Versus if you had an internal panel, then that's probably going to be member-led, because that's your ERG leaders. And I say member as in like employee-led. Maybe I should say programming. I don't know. It gets really weird with the terminology, but people inside the company doing something versus just paying to save time and have someone else do it. I am not opposed to vendor-led programming. Here's the catch. There are some pieces of vendor-led programming that is now starting to be abused, basically, where ERG leaders say, if I have the budget, I'm just going to pay someone to do pretty much every ERG event. Why is that an issue? Let's go back to CGG, Connection, Growth, Give Back. 3 reasons why people join Connection, most popular, then Growth, and Give Back. It's not as common at all for vendors to do programming that drives connection, gets people talking to each other, that fun, that decompression, all the things. It's much less likely that you'll see that. Oftentimes, because things are so curated, overly curated, even some might say, when it comes to vendor-led programming, it actually decreases people's interest in them. Like, and for instance, like a lot of the ones I see might be like a cooking class, which people aren't even oftentimes participating in. And people might attend, but it's like, well, what am I getting out of this? I'm not really even getting development, and I rarely get to talk to other people in the session. I don't get that connection, that fun. Another one might be a trivia. Like, yes, I see a lot of people just paying. Hey, we'll just pay for a trivia or for a virtual tour. But again, that connection isn't clear. That growth even isn't clear element of it. And I'm seeing sometimes, because we're doing the same format over and over and over again, because oftentimes vendor-led programming is the same thing over and over again. It's like it can only really be a speaker or a virtual tour or a cooking class or a workshop. Like it's only those 4 oftentimes. Well, then our members are getting tired of just having those as the 4 options. So I say all that to say, in 2026, I do see a rise of vendor-led programming for companies that have the budget to pay for things. My goal, especially with the release of things like ERGs.io, which we just rolled out, is that if you are to do vendor-led programming, that is actually making an impact on your members. So that's why instead of just it being a surface level, hey, we're going to throw some money at a trivia on confetti.com, or we're going to go to, insert other website where we can just book things in bulk packages. I am hoping that we're going to be more strategic and really focus on what, by me paying this money, what are our members going to get out of it? And coupled with, I want us to have more variety in 2026 so that we're not just doing educational events. We're not just doing fun events. We have some variety between member-led and vendor-led. So that's my goal. I do see a rise in vendor-led programming. Hopefully too, though, there will be a rise in some best practices. Hand in hand with the member-led versus vendor-led programming is budgets, because another thing, in order for you to be able to do vendor-led programming, is you have to have some money to pay them. I actually see budgets more or less staying the same in 2026. I don't see a huge change in general. However, I do see an abuse of how budgets are used, which is unfortunate. An abuse meaning that we're spending most of it on swag. We're spending it on some, like all of our budget on 1-2 speakers the entire year. We're giving it all away in a donation. I do think there's a better way for us to do our budgets. However, just in general, I do see them more or less staying the same. I'm not too worried about them decreasing this year. I am worried about next year them decreasing if we don't these best practices starting to be practiced when it comes to ERGs, because eventually it's just going to be a realization that yes, we have these communities, but like we're giving them money and they're not doing anything to drive community. We're not like we have these communities to boost our internal marketing, but our internal marketing isn't growing. Like the success efforts of our internal marketing isn't there. So why are we giving this money again? It doesn't make sense. If we want people to be more engaged and we're not using this money to drive engagement, it doesn't make sense. So I do fear for next year, but I think that this year we're given some grace just because last year had so much going on with it. I feel like the budgets are like a nice thank you to ERG leaders. Like, we're not going to take away your budget yet because we know you've been through a lot. I don't know if that's going to slide next year though. So we're going to have to get it together. Next trend, asynchronous engagement continues to be an unlock. it continues to be. I see this continuing in 2026 where more members are cool with participating in ERGs, but they want to participate outside of just live events. Right now, we're defaulting to only live events for our ERG programs. I'm telling you all, as you all test it out, in 2026, you will see more and more people being cool with participating without it being in a live event. So that said, that means that we got to get better with our asynchronous engagement. But that's a quick one. But I do see that continuing as people have more things on their plate at work. They need more bite-sized things, like the hour and a half workshops, 3-hour workshops. It's not going to cut it anymore like it might have once upon a time. People, working and focusing on their job is a big thing right now. So how do we give more bite-sized ways for people to participate and still feel like they're having some sort of impact? This is an interesting one that I'm going to say. Probably gonna catch you off guard. What am I gonna say when it comes to intersectionality? I actually have seen that it's being used as a crutch within ERGs, which is, like I said, an interesting thing where there are a lot of companies who are either saying we don't have a lot of engagement because our ERGs aren't doing intersectional programming. That's probably not why you don't have a lot of engagement. Even then, it's painted as the solution for ERGs. Hey, do more intersectional programming. It's gonna unlock all these things. Intersectional programming is a added benefit. It's like a bonus, but it's not a make or break for strong ERGs. Hot take. It is it's like a cherry on top. It's something cool that can be added. But right now, we're not even good at doing general programming for the individual ERGs. So by us doing intersectional programming, all we're doing, we're having some bare minimum programming that's not even engaging members from two separate ERGs and bringing them together, making now a collaboration of bare minimum, basic, not engaging programming. Again, intersectionality is being used as a crutch right now in the space, as a reason why we're struggling. Just like the global expansion piece, it's not the real issue here. It's just a bonus issue. Under the thought of CGG, Community Growth Give Back. Give back, I think, will be on the rise in 2026. I think that there's going to be more give back initiatives, so volunteerism and whatnot from ERGs. I think that that's just a trend right now where people want to give, but they want to do it in a meaningful way. I've seen some pretty cool initiatives come from ERGs, whether it's like making kits for people, whether it is, going out and going to a food shelter together, like a field trip, if you will. Like there's a lot of different ways that you can do give back initiatives. I do think that more people want that and they want it. They want to give back to communities that they care about. And that's where ERGs can do the segmented give back that helps people feel good. So I do see that on the rise, not to mention a lot of people who are over ERG programs are being given give back under their umbrella. So probably CSR is something that they have to own anyway. So I see more of that happening. Lastly, am I worried about you? Still not really right now, because of the last trend that I have. Community is, it's on the rise right now. As humans, we are communal people. I think right now, more and more people like to find community and do unique things with communities and find community around random topics nowadays. Like community is seriously on the rise. I have posted this in our previous newsletters, but we have the tall people community that's on the rise right now. We have the people whose name is Ryan community. Like there's random communities out there outside of the corporate space that we're seeing. People will really take time, come together over some shared characteristic or interest, which is so interesting. ERGs are still in this space where it's a unique community in a sense. And honestly, like because we're communal people will find community over just about anything. And I think that there's still such an opportunity when it comes to this, when it comes to segmented internal marketing via community. And I'm hoping that in 2026 that we get better at unlocking this in a way that's not superficial. But I guess we'll have to see, huh? Those are my predictions, my 13 predictions for 2026. I'm curious. Let me know which one resonates with you the most. Comment it below. I'll catch you all next time. Peace.